Thanks for attending today's Oracle Digital Assistant Introduction and Hands-on Workshop. I'm Jürgen Kress, your host and part of the Oracle Product Management team. In today's webinar, we will give you an introduction of Oracle Digital Assistant. The webinar is recorded. In case you missed one of our webcasts, on-demand recordings are available at Oracle Video Hub. For details, please see our monthly newsletter. This is a series of 4 webinars to introduce Oracle Digital Assistant, our chatbot solution. Oracle Digital Assistant is a platform to build custom bots. Additionally, we offer pre-built bots called skills for HCM, Service Cloud, or ERP. For on-premise applications like PeopleSoft, pre-built templates are available. In today's webinar, you will start to create your first digital assistant. Our trainer, Ruben Rodriguez, will guide you through the hands-on labs. The training material is available at Kadakoda. Good afternoon, Ruben.
Thank you, Jürgen. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you all the attendees for being here.
With us is also Grant Ronald. Hi, Grant.
Hello, everybody. Thanks again for coming and joining us.
And Martin Chavez from the product management team. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Jürgen, and thanks for everybody for attending.
And from our EMEA team, Martin de Grund will support us. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Jürgen. Hi, everyone. Thanks again.
To participate in the hands-on workshops, we would like to invite you to request a free trial. Please go to oracle.com/tryit and click on Start for Free.
While you activate your free trial, we would like to show you Arti. Arti is our digital assistant, which will support you through the training. Grant, over to you.
So what we wanted to do was you had a quick view of Arti on Tuesday when you first attended the session. We wanted to just give a little bit more details for a number of reasons, because firstly, as a digital assistant, we want it to be helpful to you. So when you're doing these hands-on labs and you're not quite sure what's the difference between a skill and digital assistant, or which training model should I use, or how do I extract a person's name from user input, well, you can try and ask Arti, and hopefully that will answer your questions. Of course, we are on hand to answer questions directly for you as well. But certainly volume-wise, I think on the Tuesday call, Arti answered over 500 calls, where the 5 presenters only managed just over 100 between us. So Arti can go through quite a number of questions. So the link I think you've seen before, and we'll put in the chat, is bit.ly artibot, and then you'll see Arti in the bottom corner. And Arti should guide you on the kind of things that you can do. You can ask for help at any time. There's also a help icon up here which will initiate some help, and you can just ask the kind of questions. So you might want to know, what is a digital assistant? And you can click and you can get links into our documentation, which will give you more information, or Arti will give you a more complete answer. There's also tutorials and other things that you can link to as well. One really useful feature is if you ask Arti a question like, what is a digital assistant, and you want to learn a little bit more, then what you can do is you can say something like, tell me more. And what Arti will do, will go off and search. We've got a whole source of other information to hold through blogs and social channels and our documentation as well. And this will bring in a carousel of other articles which might help you answer the question. So if you're interested in what's new, and those of you that look at my screen, you might be able to see we get Slack messages indicating anything that Arti doesn't understand, so we can fix this in real time. And this is something we're going to talk about on the 4th session, about how we build production bots and some of the techniques we build production bots as well. So let me try another couple of things you might want to do. We talk about entities, and you might ask, what is an entity? You're new to this, so you don't know. So Arti will go through, again, give you indications, but also lead you. If there are different types of entities in Digital Assistant, do you want to know about the built-in, or do you want to know custom entities? Well, what do we have built in to the platform? We can find out more, or let's go back and ask about custom. And of course, asking a question like, what's an entity, might be useful if when Ruben's presenting, he mentions phrases which you're not quite sure what he meant. But equally, Arti should be able to deal with things on a a use case, you don't know the right words. You just want to say something like, how do I extract a person's name from input? Okay, and you don't know the right things, but it will tell you, well, look here, we can tell you how to extract a person name, and here's the types of entities you can use for extracting a person's name. So there we can see there's actually a built-in entity called a person for extracting person's name as well. Another thing might be, how do I resolve an address? And again, you just state kind of what you want, and Artie should be able to answer that question for you. Now, we have this thing, what we call the long tail problem. Artie doesn't know everything, but what Artie can do is try and answer the 300 or so most frequently asked questions. But for all the other questions, we'll try and do our best, or Artie will try and do the best to find an answer if Artie doesn't understand. So if I ask something like, well, what could be, tell me about event handlers. Now, this is a really new feature in Digital Assistant, so Artie doesn't know about it quite yet. And Artie will answer there. It's not one which has been specifically trained, but here are some articles. So the long tail problem is, for all the other questions that Artie's not trained for, we'll try and go out and find the answer for you there as well. And you can be conversational. You can say to Artie, great, and Artie will like that feedback. But equally, if you ask a question, how to integrate with Service Cloud, and let's imagine that the answer gave you, I mean, Artie's given me a great answer actually, but if for example you're not really happy with this, you can tell Artie, this is not helpful. And you don't have to give your email, but I can put my email address in here, and we just log that information. That allows us to try and fix this thing as quickly as possible. If you're ever stuck, you can just ask for help, and Artie will tell you, well, look, we were talking about some general topics. I can help you, but if you want complete help, then we have a complete carousel of articles. So you are awesome. And Artie's hopefully very thankful. So use Artie there. As I said, it's there to help you. You guys are our soft launch, because we're actually launching this officially next week as part of the official product and documentation. But what's also going to be super exciting is on the 4th session, we're going to drill into some of the best practices about how you build conversational assistants that can find, that are conversational, that have huge numbers of intents that they can understand as well. So by all means, try it out, ask the questions. Artie should be able to cope with the confusion. Like if I say, how do I deploy my bot to Android device and an iPhone? So there's two things I've actually asked in that question, but Artie will say, well, look, that's fine. You've asked about iOS and Android. Well, answer which one would you like to know about first? Well, let's ask Android. And as you'll get to learn about how we build conversations, there's these things called system components, which help define the conversations. And you can ask Artie, what is the system component for security? And there we go. We can look at the various system components that are to do with security. Or I could ask, what is the system component for to set a variable? And these are the different components you use for setting a variable. You'll find out more of this in the hands-on lab that Ruben's about to do. So ask the questions. If you break Artie, then congratulations, that's our fault. We need to fix it. but there's a domain, and obviously if you start asking about pizzas or who is Safra, or why is Larry bought a place in Florida, then there's only so much Artie will learn, but hopefully we'll deal with that gracefully. So I can see a few people asking Artie questions already. So great, enjoy. If you have any other questions, I say ask Artie or ask us in the Q&A. We're more than happy to respond to those over the next 2 hours.
Great, thank you very much, Grant. With that short demo, we would like to hand over to you, Ruben.
Thank you very much, Jürgen and Grant, for the great demo. So as I'm seeing some people that doesn't have an instance created from the last session, so we will go through the process of creating a free trial again. So the thing you have to do is to go to oracle.com/tryit, and then you have to click on Start for Free. This page, you have to fill your country, your first name, your last name, and very important thing is to use the same email that you used when registering to these hands-on labs. After that, you will verify the email and fill some details about your address, the name of the cloud account, and finally, just click on Finish, and the instance will begin provisioning. After that, you will see this page. That is the cloud, the OCI console, and you have several options to go in here. So you can just go to your email, check the email that Oracle Cloud sends you, and it will be prompt for you to log in, and you will get here. Alternatively, you can go to oracle.com, click on View Accounts, and click on Sync into Cloud. Here you will need to set the cloud account name that you configured before on the trial account setup. Click on Next and fill the username and password. I have already done that before, so that's why I don't have any username and password to provide. So after you have the cloud account ready, the next step is to create an Oracle Digital Assistant account. So on the menu, on the left-hand side, scroll down and find Digital Assistant. And the first thing you have to do is to select a compartment. A compartment is just a unit to group some resources within Oracle Cloud to assign specific security and policies to them. So just select one compartment. You can select the root one, for example, and create a digital assistant instance. Here you can provide any name you want, for example, ODA, and select the shape. The shape development and production, just for you to know, is at the end is just the number of minimum requests that you will be charged at the end of the month. So for the hands-on labs, I recommend to use a development shape because the credits, the 500 credits will last longer. So you fill the data, you click on create, and wait a few minutes until the status of the instance is active. So while we wait for some people to get the instance up and running, I will show some slides about my company for a few minutes. So I work for Avantic, that is a Spanish consultant company, and we are based in Madrid and Barcelona. We have almost 200 consultants specialized in Oracle. So something to take into account is that we only do Oracle technology, from database to custom applications. So we cover all the stacks of Oracle. Given that we are so much focused on Oracle, we have 33 service expertise in the new partner program. And we have been awarded in the last 11 years already of the life of Avantic 13 times. Worth to mention the award that we received in Oracle Open World 3 years ago as the best partner of the year in the world, and 2 years ago the best partner for IaaS and PaaS in EMEA. So this is me. I'm a cloud solution architect in Avantic and an Oracle Ace director, and you can add me on the social networks or send me an email or drop me an email, as some of you did after last session, to ask me questions about ODA, or how can we help you to achieve or to run your own chatbot project. So I guess that for some of you, this should be already active. So the next thing you have to do is to access the ODA environment by clicking Service Console, and you will see this URL. So the thing is that Oracle is in the middle of a rollout of a new release. So this one I have here is 2102. And Oracle is releasing 2104. So some of you, depending on the data center that you selected when creating the instance, you will see this application, or you will see this application. So the functionalities, there are some small differences, some features, but in terms of the hands-on labs, it can be done in either one or the other. So there is no problem. In order to begin with the hands-on labs, I want you to go to the following link. It's bit.ly/ODA course. I will paste it on the chat, so you don't have to type it. You can just copy and paste or click on it. And clicking that link will redirect you to this page. So for these hands-ons, we are using Katacoda. That is a learning platform with integrated environments such as Visual Studio Code or a Linux shell. So you don't have to rely on other platforms or development environments to actually do the labs. In terms of the Oracle Digital Assistant hands-on lab, you will be running in both the ODA instance that you created and the Katacoda environments. So depending on the actual version that you got, if it is 2102, there is a lab for you that is the Oracle Digital Assistant hands-on labs. But on the other hand, if you got the 2104, you have to use the Oracle Digital Assistant 2104 Redwood team. So the course is based on has 5 scenarios. So the first one is how to provision an Oracle Digital Assistant instance that I will run after I explain the overview of the course. I will run it so people can catch up. Then today we will be creating defining the intents and entities in the ODA skill and learning a bit more about the platform, what areas can you find, and what functionalities it offers. And finishing today, we will implement the Dialog Flow and build the conversation within the skill. Next week on Tuesday, you will build custom components. That is the way to integrate with an external service, in this case, the weather component. And you will end up building a web widget or using the web widget Oracle provides to expose the ODA skill in your own website. So at the end of the 5 courses, you will end up having something like this, with the web widget on the bottom, on the right hand side. You will click on it, and you will start asking questions. For example, you can start with hello, and the weather bot gives you the weather forecast for the city you choose up to 7 days. So, for example, I can ask for the weather, what's the weather in Madrid? And the bot will call an Open Weather API, and will give you the weather for today, in this case, as I didn't provide a date. But for example, you can also say what's the weather in London for the day after tomorrow. Okay, so, and it will identify that the day after tomorrow is 23rd. Okay, the version I have should not be up to date, so that it will identify the date you provide and will query the API with those values. So I think it's time to start with the first lab. So you can go to Catacoda and go to your specific lab. If it is 2102, go to the first one. If it is 2104, go to the second one. So click on Start Course, and as I said before, the first step is to define intents and entity in an ODA skill. So you can click on it, and it is step by step. So you will see some information. After you finish it, you click on next step until you finish the last one. So in these scenarios, as I say here, you will read a lot and hear a lot about the word skill. A skill is an individual chatbot that is focused on specific tasks. The same way, for example, Alexa skills are well known. There are small chatbots that you can configure within Alexa. So the same with the digital assistant. You have multiple skills with a specific focus on a specific task that can be deployed within a digital assistant. Or, for example, a master bot, as I like to call it. So in this first scenario, we are going to create the skill and define the intents and intents. The first thing we have to do is to activate the location entity. So there are some features that can be enabled and disabled on demand. So going to settings and clicking on feature management, you have the location system entity. So you will find it something like this. I already enabled it to make to test the labs, but you will find it like this. So the only thing you have to do is to click on switch profile and click on enable all. Once that is done, you can go to the menu, click on development and skills, and you can start creating your skill. So I will call it weather skill. The version is fine, the platform version. So this means that, so there are some retro compatibility with versions. So even if you have the 2102, you can create a skill with another version. Okay, so, but in this case, you can use the latest one. So 2102 for the ones with this version and 2104 for the others. The primary language is the main language that will be used on the skill. So ODA supports, I don't know if it is around 6 languages natively. So for this hands-on lab, we will select English, but afterwards you can add, so once the skill is created, you can add alternative languages as well. Okay, so this is the skill or the skill menu on the left-hand side. So first you have the intents, as Grant said before. So intents are the use case at the end that the user wants to achieve. So for example, in this weather skill, that would be to know the weather, right? The weather forecast. You can have another intents in this for this in this example, for example, help intent for some users that don't really know how to use the bot, or a greetings intent for those that type hello or good morning. The second menu is the entities. So entities are variables that helps to define the intent. For example, in the weather skill, that would be the date, because you usually want to know the weather for a specific date, and the location, because if you don't define a location, it's very difficult to provide the weather, right? The next, so in terms of entities, there are different types. So if we're going to that, so there are some built-ins entities, such as location, the one we enabled, duration, date, address, phone number, etc. So these are entities that can be used out of the box, but for some other use cases, for example, you can have a value list entity that is just, as the name says, a value list where you can assign some synonyms to the values. Then you have the derive, that is an entity that is a built-in entity with some modifications. An entity list, as the name says again, is a list of entities. Then you have regular expression. This is pretty good to validate some input from the user giving a regular expression. For example, we built a chatbot for a customer, and we used the regular expression to validate the year that the user provide. So for example, if you only allow years greater than 1960, you can validate this with a regular expression. Then you have a composite pack. This is like a business domain object. For example, a pizza. A pizza has different ingredients or things that you can select, right? So for example, you have the crust, you have the size, you have the ingredients itself. So that could be a composite bag called pizza with 3 different entities inside. And then the last one is the dynamic entities. So dynamic entities is like the value list entities, but it can be, the data can be pushed with a service, with an API. Then we have the dialog flow. So here is where you will define the actual states and the conversation flow. We will go through this next week, but just to summarize and a little bit, you implement the flow with YAML, and actually you define states and transitions between different states. This is not something that you need to know, every single line of code that you have to do. It is good to know, but if not, there is a component list here where you get some code snippets, so you can copy and paste and make the modifications the modifications for your use case. The next option is a conversation designer. So here you can easily build with no code a conversation, a chatbot. So you will build the conversation, dragging and dropping boxes, and actually build the conversation instead of the conversation flow. So you start with the conversation flow, with the conversation to get a conversation flow instead of with a conversation flow to get a conversation. The next one is resource bundles. So this is like in any Java application, for example, you have the resource bundles to define different texts that will be shown in the application. You have the same in here to for the text that will be displayed in the bot. The next option is Q&A. This is a module where you can define questions and answers. Instead of building the questions and answers as intents, you will define it here. The good thing about this is that you can upload a CSV file with the questions and answers, and it will be automatically uploaded to the platform. Next one is quality. So this option is really good, to be honest, and it provides you some suggestions and advices on your utterances or example phrases for the intents, so you can see where to improve the intents model. Then you have analytics. Analytics, you will see nothing here because there are no conversation at all, as we just created the skill, but you can see some insight about how the users are using the skill. You can also check the actual conversations the users are having, and also this will help you to retrain the skill. After that, we can find the functions or components. So you will define here custom components, as you will do next week. These custom components can be implemented in or must be implemented in JavaScript using Node.js. I have to say that you don't really need to be a Node.js or JavaScript expert to this. I mean, you will be building some simple functions to make calls to services. Then we have manufacturing. So the way Chatbot projects are usually built is, so you define the intents, assign some example phrases that will help the platform to match the input from the user with the intents. And then you will be retraining the bot. Once the bot is in production, you will be retraining it with phrases from the users, right? So this manufacturing functionality enables you to create some kind of application that you can share with people and will help you build or improve the model. So they will you will ask a question, for example, how would you say, or can you tell me another way to say this phrase? And people can give you input, and then you can import this into the model. And the last option is just the skill settings. There are many configurations here. For example, as I mentioned before, to add more languages, you can add here as well Spanish, for example, and this will enable you to set utterances or example phrases in the intents for both Spanish and English. I'm going to delete it just to make it simple. Okay, so the overview is completed. So we can continue to the next step, and that is the creation of the intents. For those that didn't have the account created here, so we were already in the second scenario. And yeah, so the first steps you can follow them as I speak. So it's to enable the location entity under settings. Then you have to go to the skills menu and create the skill. And yeah, you have here some kind of information about each of the menus inside the skill that I already went through. So after that, you will be here in this screen, and you will start defining the intents. So in order to create the first one, you have to click on the green button to create the intent, and you will see this screen. So we will start creating the greetings intent to allow the users or respond or to answer the users once they say hello. So type the name greetings. And as you can see on the Katacoda page in here, there are some example phrases that we are going to add, or the utterances. So you will take these ones and add them here under examples. So for example, you can just say hello, hey, hi, good morning, etc. You can add as many as you want, but I mean, with 4, it's fine for this lab. Then we need to create another intent that is help. And as you can see on Katacoda, there are some utterances as well for that intent. That is, for example, I don't know how to use the bot. I need help. And what can I do? Okay, so for example, these 3 phrases. The third intent, and the most important one for this use case, is the weather forecast. And as examples, you can set, is it raining in Madrid? What's the temperature in New York? What's the weather forecast in London for tomorrow? So yeah, you can set up as many, as I said, as many phrases as you want. It is better to set up to define phrases different from the others, so different ways of saying things, because this way the model will better match the input from the users with the actual intent. So the next step is to add some entities to the weather forecast intent. So for these labs, we are not going to create any entity because we are lucky, and Oracle provides some, as I said, some built-in entities that we can benefit from. So for example, for this weather bot, we are going to use location. So the place we are going to find the weather for, and date. Okay, so this is now finished, and now we have to train the model with the phrases that we defined. In order to do so, you have here on the right-hand side the train button. So you can click on it, and you will see that there are 2 models to select from. So the first one is a linguistic model, and the second one is a machine learning based model. So the first one requires less training phrases to be trained and to perform well, and the second one requires more data. So For development, I always suggest to use the trainer HT. So you select it and click on submit. Okay, so the model is trained. So now we can start testing the model. Yes, when you click on train, all the intents are trained. So the next thing we are going to do is to try the intents. So for those with 2102, you can click on try it out link here. And for those with 2104, you have to click on test utterances on the left-hand side. So this is one of the biggest difference in terms of UI that I have found so far. So you click on test utterances. And in this case, you will type the utterance here. What's the weather in Madrid? Okay. So it identifies that the weather is, that the city is Madrid, that the location is Madrid. And on the other hand, if you have the old version, you have to go down here and type again, what's the weather in Madrid? Same results at the end. So you can try different phrases. For example, using the date for the day after tomorrow. And it identifies that the day after tomorrow is 24th of April. So with these values, at the end of all the labs, you will be sending these values to this service, to the custom component, so you can call the Open Weather Map API to get the data from of the weather. Yes, in order to test, you click on try it out and send the phrase that you want to try against the model.
Just one thing I wanted to add, that because we've got the questions from a few people. The idea of the training utterances is to give ideas and hints to the model as to what asking for the weather should be like. You don't have to supply every single potential phrase. If you train it with enough phrases like I want to know the weather, hey, what's the weather, is it sunny, is it raining, then if I ask a question like, is it going to snow tomorrow, even though you haven't specifically trained it with that, it will have learned that given phrases like what is the weather, is it sunny, is it raining, then there's a pretty good chance that is it going to snow is also a phrase like that. So the models, there's a huge amount of deep learning going on in the background. That's why certainly for some models it can take a couple of minutes to train, but this isn't doing string matching. There is a huge amount of power and an AI-based learning going on in the background that will train those models. In reality, you would train them with, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 phrases and use trainer TM, but that takes that's going to take longer than you really want to do here. But you can try that. But the trainer HT should still be reasonably accurate, but is not based on the kind of much deeper language models that the other one is.
Thank you, Grant.
Thanks, Ruben.
So I'm going to answer some questions. So the button add example does, yeah. So if you click on add example, it will add the phrase that you just made or sent to the intent that you select here. If the location and date information is not showing in the try it out, that means or can mean that you have not added the entities to the intent. So you have to come here on the plus entity button and select or search for location and date. Yeah, okay, so I think we can continue. After that, we will answer more questions or support you with the hands-on labs. So after the tests, you will be done with the second scenario. So you can click on next and start the third one. So now we are actually implementing the dialog flow. I will move it here. Okay. So as I said, this is the dialog flow. So by default, or there is some kind of flow where it prompts you. So this is using system.list. So this asks the user to select one of the options. Then we have the ask name, where the bot is asking for what is your name. And then the bot is printing with the system out component the value of the first selection and the value of the name that you provide. So just a quick test of this. Hello. So as I said, it prompts the user to select one option here, Namaste. And then the bot asks for the name. So I will type my name and it just prints both values. So saying that, in order to explain a little bit what's in here, the first thing you have to do is to remove all lines below, let's say, states. So you need to have the flow like this. And on the Katacoda page, you have the code to actually copy and paste into the flow. I will explain a little bit each of the states that I will be using. And another thing you have to keep in mind is the indent between different, at the end, the flow needs to have a specific structure. So, and YAML has 2 characters or 2 spaces for indentation. So it may happen that you copy and paste, for example, the intent state, and you need to be careful with this. In this case, it worked, but there are some cases where you need to maybe tap once or delete some spaces. So as I have just done, the first thing that we have added is the intent state. So this helps to get the input from the user and store it in the iResult variable that needs to be defined also under context variables, as it is. And what this will do is to match the input from the user with the existing intents. And then, depending on the intent that is matched, it will redirect you to a specific state. So this is the greetings intent, and this is the greet state. The same for the weather forecast with init weather forecast state, help with help state. And if the input from the user does not match any of the intents that you have defined, it will match the unresolved intent. So we will be redirecting the conversation to unresolved intent, to an unresolved state, sorry. So in terms of transitions, there's something I'd like to explain. So there are different transitions that you will be using during these hands-on labs. So the first one is actions. So it's based on some input. You will have different actions that you can redirect in order to redirect to different states. So this also applies to custom components. So in the custom component, you will see that there are different outcomes from that component. So each of the outcomes will be defined as an action, and that will allow you to redirect based on the outcome to a specific state. Then we have next. We will see later when adding more states to the flow. We have a next transition that just defines the next state that will be executed. Then we have the return. That means that the actual conversation or flow is finished. I mean, you can have more than one return state. And as I said, it means that that's the end of the conversation. And then we have the error transition, that it will transition to that state if there is an error on the component. Okay, so it is not mandatory to define a transition. So if there is no transition defined, it will go to the next state or to the state below the state that you are building. Anyway, even if it is not mandatory, I think it is recommended to even set a next transition to the following state, just to control the flow, instead of it is the best way to see actually what the flow is doing. So now we're going to start adding more states to the flow. So the first one we are going to add, or the next one we are going to add, is the grid state and the help state. So you can just copy it from Katacoda and paste it. So here is here's what I meant before with the indent. So as you can see, in the intent state component, there are 2 spaces, and in this one there are 4. So you need to actually delete 2 of them in order for it to work. Anyway, for example, there is something wrong here. You also can click on validate button, and it will let you know that there are some errors. So for example, right now there is, of course, we're missing the weather forecast state and the unresolved state, but it will also identify if there are some kind of indent problem on the flow. Okay, so these 2 states are output components. So this will just print the text that you provide. And in this case, so if I type hello on the bot, it will show me this message: welcome to the weather forecast assistant. And then, as I said, next transition to the help state, it will also display the message in here. So after that, the help component is doing a transition return, which means that the conversation is finished, and it will and the user can type another message to start from there. So this doesn't mean that the actual bot is destroyed, or I don't know, something like that. So this is just the actual conversation flow is finished. Okay, so the next states we are going to add are unresolved and unresolved. So for the unresolved state, you are using a system.list that it just prompts the user to select yes or no to the prompt that you are setting here. So in this case, we are just using it to, hey, I cannot help you that. Just imagine the user asks for a pizza. So I cannot help you with a pizza and you can use this kind of unresolved intents, so the states that you define with unresolved intent, to guide the user to the actual use case that you are covering within the bot. So even if you ask me for pizza, I ask you if you want to know more about the weather. So, and yeah, and based on the action, if the user select yes, it will go to the init weather forecast that we are going to add after, and the unresolved to say, hey, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, so before adding the init weather forecast state, we need to add some variables to the context under context variables. So you can go up and first delete greeting and name, as that was something used on the example, and paste location and entity and and date variables. So how the variables are defined: you define the name of the variable and the type. The type, as you can see in the comment in here, can be a string, boolean, int, resource bundle, or an entity name. In this case, both variables are based on an entity, and this is location and date. Okay, so next is to add 3 states, and that is init weather forecast, set ask for location, and no location. So imagine we go to the bot, we ask for weather, the intent matches with the weather forecast intent. We go to the init weather forecast state, and the first thing we do is to try to retrieve the date that the user provides. So as I said, inside the variable iResult, it is stored all the information that the NLP model gives us. That include the not just the intent that was matched, but also the entities. So with this expression, we can retrieve the actual date that the user provides. So it is an array because you can configure the variables, or not the variables, but the entities to allow more than one date. So if you want to check for the weather for today and tomorrow. So after you, something I have to say is that this state will be only executed if this variable is empty. So there is something called entity slotting. That is just that the states will be executed only if the variable is empty. If it is not empty, this state will not be executed, and the transition will be executed. So after we try to retrieve the date, we go for the ask for location, set ask for location. So this is a system.text component, and what this does is given the NLP result variable, that is iResult, it will first try to fill the location variable with information. So it's like doing this state plus a system.text to ask the user some information just with one state. I don't know if that makes sense, but at the end, with this property, you don't have to add another component, so you can just do it in one. So this will first try to fill the location variable, and if it don't manage to fill it, this state will be executed, and we will ask the user for the location. So if after the user has provided the location, we will transition to a print weather state. Or if the user doesn't want to provide the the location for or provide a wrong location for more than 2 times, it will go to no location. So just imagine we ask for the location and the user keeps typing pizza, pizza, pizza. So that's not a location. Well, actually, but just imagine any other word that is not a location. So after 2 attempts, it will reach the max prompts, and the action transition or the cancel action will execute and will redirect to no location. The next states we are going to add are the print weather and the end conversation thanks. So I had an issue with Katacoda, and there are some HTML or Markdown tags here. For example, the code. So when you copy and paste, you will have to remove it or go state by state. And then you also have to take care of this indent here. Okay, so these states are print weather and end conversation thanks. So the print weather state is using a common response component. This is the component that you can use for many use cases. In this case, or one of the use cases that you can use is to display a carousel with different information. So for example, we are displaying some cards with the city and the date as the title, the temperature and the weather condition as description, and we are also displaying image and a URL. So as I said, needs to have some, you have to be careful here. Okay, I think that's fine. So what this will do is to, once you get the location, it doesn't matter right now because we are not calling any external service. It will print this information and then transition to the end conversation thanks state. So before executing it, we are going to validate the flow. Okay, even though we have this, let's say, warning, I think it is fine. But one of the good things about Digital Assistant is that you get some advices, okay, or some things that you need to consider. So this is a good thing, and you get it at the flow level, at the entity level, and the intents level. Yeah, so when it is completed, you have to click on validate to verify that all is working. If you don't get any red circle, it should be fine. And you can execute it, reset to get rid of the previous testing, and start asking some, what's the weather like, for example. As I said, so here on the right-hand side, you can see the different states where the conversation has gone through. So for example, as soon as I type the phrase, the first state is the intent. So the model will try to match the provided input against the, or the component, the system intent component will try to match the input with the NLP model. Then we are asking for the, or we are trying to retrieve the weather forecast. In this case, I didn't provide one. And then the set ask for location will be executed. As I have not provided any location, the bot is asking me to provide one. So I will say Madrid. So, and after I get all the information, I get the actual card. In this case, there is no more than one, so you cannot navigate from left to right. So you get the information that we are printing. On the other hand, if we are, for example, saying what's the weather for tomorrow in Madrid. So in this case, we don't get any prompt from the bot, so we don't need to provide any information because we have the location, that is Madrid, and we have the date, that is tomorrow. So this was it. With this last testing, the 3 labs for today are finished. And next week on Tuesday, we will be building the custom component to access the weather data and setting up the web widget to expose the chatbot.
Ruben, thank you very much for that impressive labs. So if you can go back to Katacoda. So thank you for the live demo, for going through the labs in the system live. If Ruben was too quick, or if you have some more questions, you can put them in the Q&A right now, or you can visit the Katacoda labs. So Ruben, can you show quickly the Katacoda lab 2, the scenario?
Yes.
So in that scenario, you can go through each step, and there is detailed documentation for each of the steps, including the code snippets. So it will guide you through all the activities that Ruben have been done, and you should be able, with that help, to complete it also.
While you complete your hands-on lab scenario 2, let's share some additional resources. At Cloud Customer Connect, you can collaborate. You can continue with questions, you can share innovations, and you can earn badges. Developers are invited to join our meetup groups. Every month, we offer a virtual meetup to share best practices and network. Locations include Utrecht, Brussels, Cairo, Istanbul, Lille, Lisbon, London, Madrid, Oslo, São Paulo, and yours. Ruben is heading the group in Madrid, so please join us at meetup.com, and for an overview, visit bit.ly/developer meetups. Make use of the documentation and training material, including an overview, provisioning details, tutorials, learning materials with step-by-step, tips and tricks, and tech videos. You can access the documentation via bit.ly/rtbot. We also offer an assessment to become a certified Oracle Digital Assistant expert. To find out who are the experts that can support your project, please visit Partner Finder. There you can search for companies who have implemented successful customer projects, like Avantic, the company Ruben works for. At Cloud Marketplace, you can search and download pre-built bots like the EDA solution from our partner Infancy. As an Oracle partner, please make sure that your profile in Partner Finder is updated and submit your service offerings and templates in the Cloud Marketplace. To learn more about Digital Assistant, please subscribe to our customer newsletter. Martin Jarvis and I publish the latest update every month. So Martin, what's the content of the current edition?
Yeah, so we'd be delighted to have more people subscribe to the newsletter. As Jürgen says, we tend to put out some best practice and some customer stories. I think we had some really interesting CX stories that went in this month that talk about some customers that have been live and what they've done. Grant's material on NLP best practices has all been highlighted in there as well. So we'll continue to do articles like that going forward.
Excellent. So if you would like to learn more, please read the latest edition, the March edition. You can visit the archive and make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. If you want to share some best practices, events, or your customer success, please send Martin or myself a note, and we are happy to add your article to the newsletter. In case you're a partner, we have the developer partner community newsletter for you that includes all the content about digital assistant and developer tools like Oracle Chat and VBCS, and also backend application development like the Kubernetes engine, FM project, and a lot of content about WebLogic, our J2EE application server.
To summarize the resources, visit the Oracle Digital Assistant website, make use of the documentation, and all videos are published at Oracle Video Hub. Collaborate at Oracle Cloud Customer Connect, and please use the Katakoda training course to complete the online labs. Subscribe to the customer and the partner newsletter.
Ruben, back to you for questions and answers. I think there's still plenty of open questions.
Yes, so the YAML script is available on GitHub. So let me open this. So at the end of the third scenario, you have in here the link to GitHub, and you have the full code. So you can get it from here. So this is a working code. You can just copy all and paste it on your skill.
Just maybe a general thing to add, the YAML thing is always a little bit of a challenge for new developers and understanding the correct indentation. So a couple of things you can do. If you just Google for YAML validator, there's lots of open source or online tools. You just paste your code in and it'll give you checks, which is one thing you can do. And the other thing is, in your instance, I think there might be some sample or demo skills that you can also look to as well. And on the YAML editor, the flow editor, there's if you go to the top, there's a green button for components, and that shows you the format of each of the components, so the correct indentation. So as long as you then position that code to the left-hand side, that shows you what the correct indentation is, i.e. the state name is 2 in, the component is 2 further in from that, so properties is the same, so is transitions. So it's a little bit awkward at first, but you'll soon get very much used to it.
Yeah, all the ones that are getting the not a valid YAML, you need to check. I mean, this is thing to do right now is to go to the. I will paste the link. So in this link I have just pasted, you can find the actual working code for the flow. I will try to upload the actual skill today to GitHub and modify the scenarios so you can get it from there.
Ruben, there's a rather meaty one from Mahesh around Java exception, unrecognized field description and class.
Yeah, so that means that the so let me go back to here. So this means that the structure in here is not correct. You need to check. You need to check that the indentation here is correct. Yeah, most of those errors people is getting is because of the structure in here. So I suggest that you all go to the link I pasted and copy the full code and paste it in here. So you will just come here, copy all the code, and paste it here. It should be fine. So you don't need to fix anything. Okay, I think I remember some question that how can I see if something is wrong? So for example, this is not correct because I added 2 extra spaces here. So if you go to validate, you can see that there are some errors, and only the first error will appear here next to the line code, the line number, But if you go to this back button here, you can actually, let's do this. You can actually keep this open and go line by line, fixing the errors. Then once you're done with that, click on validate and everything will be fine. Is there any YAML editor you prefer? To be honest, I usually use I don't usually use any editor, so I just type it here and code it here. So, I mean, as Grant said, that when you are starting with this, it can be a little bit messy, but after you have done a few bots or a few examples, I mean, you will get to it. There is no big issue after that.
So to summarize the first day of the hands-on labs, everybody hopefully created and activated the free trial account. Once you have done this, please go to katacoda.com/r-suntrot and you can log in with a Twitter account, LinkedIn or Google account, or you can create a free trial account at Katacoda. And there are details in here to provision the digital assistant instance. That's the first scenario. And if you click on the scenario, it will go through each step. Once you have done this, please go to also scenario 2 and 3 and complete them. Next Tuesday, we will continue with scenario 3 and 4. Anything you want to add, Ruben?
No. Just thank you for attending and see you next week.
Anything you want to add on your side, Grant, Martin, or Martijn?
I'd just like to thank everybody for taking part today.
Yeah,
I know it's tough to keep up, but well done.
Yeah, I was going to say, well done. You know, there's a lot of information to take in, doing hands-on and listening as well, but take the opportunity now that you have the trial to test out a few things. One thing I'd really think to try is, you know, the great thing is the NLP, the natural language processing. So add some intent to your skill, try different things, see how well it understands, and if it's not, then come back and ask these questions on our next session. But really try, create some intents for different use cases, train them, test it, see how well it deals with it.
Great, thank you, Grant. So the first session is also recorded and available. We recorded today's session. We will make it also very soon available. And please use the Katacoda Labs scenario 1, 2, and 3 to complete what you have seen today by Ruben. In Katacoda, each step is described and you can read it at your own speed and you can complete it. Next Tuesday, we will continue with Ruben on Lab 3 and 4. And next Thursday, we wrap up the series with Grant Ronald's best practice session. So that's a session definitely not to miss. And I would like to say thanks to everybody supporting today. Special thanks to Ruben, Grant, Martijn for supporting and presenting today.
We are looking forward to welcome you in the second part of the hands-on digital assistant training. Thanks for watching.